The K Jazz Show, Sundays on Kofifi FM 97.2.
Extraordinary jazz musician, pianist, and composer who is considered a leading exponent of Cape jazz and has worked with a number of top-shelf musicians, including Robbie Jansen, McCoy Mrubata, and Terumasa Hino. Ramon Alexander has 2 albums to his credit and has produced several recording projects. He is an educator in jazz piano and currently mentoring the Prince Albert's very own Karoo Jazz Project. A student of classical music and word on the street is he is also a winemaker. For Our Africa this morning, he talks to us ahead of the upcoming Journey to Jazz Festival, touching on his work with the youth jazz band of the Karoo. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, sir. Thank you very much for your warm welcome.
Always a pleasure, and thank you for joining us. You know, you and I were part of the inaugural Journey to Jazz Festival last year, and now we're back for the second annual Road to the second edition of the festival. What is it about this festival that keeps you coming back, Ramon?
Well, first of all, it's a very enjoyable and promising jazz festival. You know, having been inaugural jazz festival last year. You know, it's not many jazz festivals in South Africa you get in a sort of quaint, trendy little town like Prince Albert, and it's got that sort of international vibe. If you go to Europe or a lot of places across the globe, you'll find a lot of these type of boutique settings for jazz festivals, and they are quite charming and appealing, of course.
Yeah, and I want to talk a bit, about this history, your history, having grown up in Mamre, formerly known as Groenekloof. Quite a few years ago, that name was, and I could be wrong here, but the area isn't historically known for a culture of jazz. So the question here is, where did jazz find you? And who are some of the influences, that helped shape your career?
A very good question. Yeah. And I think that is, that bit of history sort of relates to why I'm in Prince Albert, because I can relate to growing up in a small town where exposure to jazz is non-existent to very rare. I can't even think of any jazz memories in Mamre itself, except for my brother. My brother was a keen listener and a keen collector of music by the likes of the GRP records. I don't know if you remember GRP records. That's the Grusin Rosen Productions. So obviously Dave Grusin and the Yellow Jackets and Chick Corea and those people were all part of the label. But it was only later, until I was about, say, a teenager, when I was really exposed to jazz. I was about 15 years old. And I remember we went to the then Grahamstown, now Makanda, and I remember watching a concert with my brother at the Monument Theatre. And I don't know if the Monument Theatre still hosts jazz concerts, but I remember it well. And I recall this one band. I remember the name. They were known as Como No. I don't know if they still exist, but I remember the name. And I was really struck by this Cuban pianist. And I've never seen anything like that in my life. This person just playing freely and without any sheet music. And As you've mentioned before, I'm classically trained, so I didn't know a world of improvisation and being free.
Yeah.
So that was my first introduction at the age of 15 years old. And ever since I've explored the piano and I've been searching for sounds, I've been developing my ear. That was the year that I actually started playing by ear. And about 3 years after that, when I finished school, I took up some lessons with the foremost teacher at that time in Cape Town, Merton Barrow, at the jazz workshop. So there were a couple of us who proudly claimed that Merton Barrow was our teacher. Andrew Lilly, the head of the College of Music in Cape Town, Andrew Ford, and myself amongst those people.
Yeah, and in a conversation, you were quoted saying, and I quote, that you love listening to great composers rather than great players. A very interesting statement. Please do tell.
Yeah, that's exactly how I would describe myself. I'm more of a composer, a creator of music than a pianist. But unfortunately, I can't find anybody to play my music except myself. So I have to hone my skill as a pianist, just to get my music out there. So, so that's correct. I've been quoted saying that I love the writing of the Pat Metheny group, for instance, because they're also a very eclectic group, collecting music from around the world. And you can't really box the music in. And obviously, that's what appeals to me the most. If I listen to a good composition and it has a good storyline, a good curve, then that's what appeals to me.
Kofifi FM, we are chatting to jazz musician, pianist, and composer Ramon Alexander. And before the music break, we listened to a composition called Loklof's Semensa from his Echoes from Loklof's project, where, we're also reflecting on his beginnings as a musician, as he is our guest for Our Africa this Sunday. Now, Ramon, you and I get together today to talk about your upcoming appearance with the Karoo Jazz Project. And they are a youth band, who are on the lineup at this year's Journey Jazz Festival in Prince Albert. Let's talk about your mentorship and some of the activities that you have been doing with this band, including what's in store, for the jazz traveler from this collaboration.
My involvement with the Karoo Jazz Project started last year when I was approached by the then mentor, Fraser Barry, who is a sort of renowned musician in the vernacular of the Afrikaans language, especially I'm talking about the colored community. He's a very proud Khoi descendant, and we all believe, including myself, that our music is rooted in that indigenous sort of genome, and I think the Karoo project sort of it's a very daunting task, because I remember when Brenda Sasani approached me earlier this year, and she explained her vision to me about developing some jazz talent in the Karoo. I thought, oh shit, that's pretty impossible, because but my mentor, my academic mentor at Stellenbosch University, always said, if something seems impossible, it's probably worth doing. So that's what sort of got me there at the back of my mind. And I remember Brenna telling me a story about the great saxophone player, Kai Mashlangu, who went into the Soweto township, and he was mandated to find some talent and develop some talent. And and obviously the Karoo, Prince Albert, is not Soweto, where jazz is actually rife and happening. But I still took on the task, and I mean, I can't I can't work miracles and do that in a year. So I have to start. I have to start somewhere. So that's basically what I'm doing this year in Prince Albert. I'm taking local musos and taking their works, and I'm presenting it through a vehicle of jazz, putting them alongside jazz musicians, putting them alongside people who improvise and people who understand the jazz language and the sound, etc. So it's basically just an introduction to jazz for the musicians from the Karoo. So so basically I've been taking their songs, and we've been sort of workshopping it and making it accessible for a jazz audience, but also to the people of the Karoo. That's what I'm trying, at least. So I hope that comes across nicely.
Well, we will be there, and of course, I believe it'll be sounding incredible. But I want to pick your brain for a second, still on the mentorship. Stay with me. There is a wave of incredible young jazz musicians, Ramon, coming out of South Africa today, who are reshaping, and maybe we'll use the word remodernizing, the South African jazz sound. However, from a teaching perspective, some say we are still not fully utilizing the rich history and the South African heritage in jazz education. Your thoughts on this? And whilst you're thinking about it, do you think there is a chance that lessons could purely be based on South African jazz, or do they have a place in the future?
Oh, that's quite a loaded question. I'd normally refrain from giving my opinions, but I think when you study anything, you have to study the source. You have to go back to the source. And in South Africa, there are quite a few sources. There are many peoples in South Africa. You get the Nguni tribes, people coming from Nguni culture, and then you get people who come from Khoi, who's rooted in Khoi and San traditions. And then, of course, we have the influence from Europe and the West and the rest of the West, America, when we talk about jazz. So I think it's quite, so you have to look at those, 3-4 angles, which I just mentioned. You have to look at who you are as a person. Where do you come from?
Yeah.
Because I believe you can't take coal to Newcastle. So you have to, when you go out there in the world, you have to represent a place, a cultural place, a geographical place, but also you have to go out there with knowledge, and talk to if you want to play jazz, you must learn about jazz to people, or so it's a multifaceted thing, but it all requires deep searching and studying and honing your crafts accordingly.
And the future of jazz in South Africa from the young children or from the young artists? Maybe let me rephrase that, from the young artists. In your opinion?
In my opinion, I think, where there's youth, there's always promise, and where there's teaching, there is a chance for them to really go out there and create something of value. Maybe it's new, maybe it's dusted off traditions, but there's a place for all of that. And I, being a lecturer at university, I believe there's always something to look forward to. For instance, there's this one great group at this moment called the Sun Quintet. They're all ex-students of mine who are really, for the past year or so, they've been making waves. At least in Cape Town, they released their album.
Yeah.
And, I took the time to actually listen to the album, and I thought, there's something there. So I really hope that they can take that further and fulfill their promise.
Oh, well, we'll hold them to it because I'm chatting to them in the next hour. But Kofifi FM in conversation about everything jazz and the road to the journey of jazz anyway. And that happens this May in the gem of the Karoo, the beautiful town of Prince Albert. And our musical guest is Ramon Alexander, who will be holding court on several bandstands at this year's edition of the festival. And we've also been listening to some of his music during this conversation. I certainly hope you enjoy some of that. Of course, Ramon, to those of us who will be traveling, to the festival, please share with us, when and where will you be performing? And of course, how can we be a part of that?
Sure. I don't have any dates and venues in front of me. I know I'm basically performing every day. The Thursday, I'm performing. We have our first performance of the Karoo Jazz Project. I think that's about 3:00 the afternoon. And the evening, I actually have a special performance with my trio at Gay's Barn. So I'm really looking forward to that, because that would be something different from the Karoo project. That would be my own project, and I've assembled a nice trio for that gig. The same trio backing the Karoo project. That's Dylan Tabisha on double bass and Anna Minel on drums. And for the Karoo project, I have a young, promising guitarist, also a student of mine. His name's Joshua America. I've been saying to him, listen here, I don't want that R&B nonsense. I want Karoo. Go and search for that Karoo sound on that guitar.
Yeah.
So, so hopefully he'll deliver. I believe he will. It's already sounding really good, in my opinion. And then we have, I think on the Friday and the Saturday and possibly the Sunday, we have Karoo Jazz Project performances.
Well, we look forward to all of it. We look forward to seeing you at the festival and being part of the music as you share for the entire week of the festival. And as we wrap up the conversation, access to your music, where can we get physical copies? Are you streaming it? Will we have copies at the festival? Do tell.
I don't know if people still are into buying physical copies. Maybe I should organize a couple.
Oh, yes, what do you think? Oh, yes, we are.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
I've got some. I still have copies of a couple of projects I've been on. I've been on Cape Jazz, Mountain Records production, Cape Jazz Volume 4. It's an album that features the great Errol Dyers in his last big recording. And then I have Cape Jazz 5 also, which is just a solo piano project, which is one piano and 5 pianists or 6 pianists from Cape Town, which includes myself, Carl Shepard, Ibrahim Khalil Shihab, and a host of others, Hilton Shielder, of course. So I'll have a couple of copies of that. And then, I'll bring some of my original projects along.
Oh, absolutely. Looking forward to it. And we can't wait, to join you and be a part of the festival at the second annual Journey to Jazz Festival, of course. Ramon, thank you so much for joining us this Sunday on Kofifi FM 97.2.
Thanks so much, Mrubata.
He is a jazz musician, pianist, and composer, Ramon Alexander, and was for Our Africa on the K Jazz Show.